in my own hometown. Stranger.
Howdy folks, Little John out in the brewery on a rather chilly Friday morning here in winter in the old hilltops, and today I'm putting down my Russian Imperial Stout that I've been talking about for a little while and wanting to get organised. This is a brew. I'm doing this for my son's wedding. We're going to go in the bottles for the favours for the guests to take home. So today's brew day. It's going to be a big mash, and I seem to be missing. Oh, good. So, I'm doing 28 litre batches, a big batches, and it's bigger than what any one single piece of equipment is going to handle. I'm looking for 28 litres, well, hopefully 30 litres in the fermenter. I've got to actually bottle 24 litres of this. I've got to do 3 cartons of it, which means my mash tun and rubber brew won't handle it. The total is about 12.3 kilograms of grain. So what I'm doing, first up, is starting with the robo brew, and I'm going to mash. I've got 4 kilos of lager malt in here, warmed to 62 degrees. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this for 2 hours at 62 degrees, running through and circulating. And then I'm going to use, I've got 24 litres in here, and then I'll run that 24 litres. Well, I don't 24 litres, but what's left will then get run. That will become my mash water for the remainder of the grain, which will be here in the mash tun on the old 3V system. So I want this at 62 degrees. For a reason. I want to get a good conversion on this part of the grain to help with keeping the body down on the finished beer, so I can get a good whack of conversion done at that 62 temperature range on this 4 kilos. That'll help keep the whole beer a bit drier and produce that little bit extra alcohol, so we get a bit more attenuation out of the yeast when it comes to fermentation time. So I'm just going to mash this in. So as I said, so it'll be 2 hours at 62 degrees with the robo brew recirculating. Obviously I'm just going to mash in now, give it 10 minutes, let it sit, and then I'll put the pumps on and let it recirculate for 2 hours. And I'm going to pump that back into the esky, which has got apparently right now it's got 5 kilos of Goilden Promise in there. There's also 1.5 kilos of oats and 0.5 kilo of brown malt. So this is my total base, so we're working there. And the idea is that once this 62 degrees has been hit, this is going to step up with the lovely use of the robo brew step timer, and we'll jump up to 68 degrees. And I'll run this at 68 degrees for 20 minutes. So effectively I'm going to get a good conversion through this part of the mash. At that point I'd probably have myself a nice little lager base, but I will then pump this what will then be about 21 litres of usable wort. I'll pump that into the esky directly in the top, onto that grain bed, and I'll continue to mash that at around 66 degrees, 65, 66 for the rest of it, and we'll continue on from there. On top of this, I do have 1.5 or 1.2 kilos of, that's total. There's half a kilo of chocolate malt, half a kilo of dark crystal, and 200 grams of black roast, and they're been cold steeping in 6 litres of water overnight. So that will go into the esky tun as well when I transfer this over at the same time. Do a temperature adjustment and hold this at 66 for an hour, and then we'll continue with the mash out and the sparge as per normal. So yeah, so she's a big day. Going to be a bit of transfer. I'm not going to use the 3V on the esky tun. I'm only going to do a standard, just an infusion, just let it sit. I'm going to use water additions with my temp adjustments. Again, just for a little ease of use. I don't need to be mucking around. It's such a big beer and there's so much big flavour there, it's not going to make much difference if it drops around to a degree or two. Yeah, the esky, the Techni Ice mash tun holds temperature really bloody well, so once it's in, it's not going to hurt too much. And like I said, being such a big beer, I'm looking for 9% alcohol at the end of the day, around a 1086 starting gravity. So a little bit of variation as we go isn't going to hurt. So I'm just going to pop this top screen on now while I'm going. Just let it sit. Get that ready. So I'll let this sit for 10 minutes just to let it settle. Then I'll come back and put the pumps on and adjust the time. So it's 2 hours. Run it through its run, so we'll come back and I'm looking to transfer this over. Righto, so we've finished the first mash step on the Robo Brew. Like I said, we've gone through that 62. It's sat on, it's come up to 70 degrees. It's been there for about 15 minutes since it got there. I thought I had it at 68. I've had it set at 70. I'm not too fussed. That's going to work nicely for what I want to get in here anyway. So all I'm going to do is I'll just put the recirc arm into the mash tun, and I'll just pop the pump on. Now this is only going reasonably slow. Just stand that. There. Here we go. It's only a slow flow. Probably pick it up just a little bit. I don't want to do it too quick because I've got the ball pipe is still sitting in that wort, so I want it to slowly just drop out as we go. And what I'll do, I'll run about 2 litres of I've got hot water over here, the 10 litres which I've got hot to use for adjusting into here, and I'll run that through just like a mini sparge, just to rinse it out, make sure we get everything out of there. Alright. So this is probably going to take a little bit of time to get this all over and get this into the grain here. And I'm just going to mix this slowly as I go until we get it all in. So while that's happening, what I've done, as I said, I've got 10 litres of water which I've heated up. It's sitting just under a boil. It's about 97 degrees. It didn't quite, on my little portable boiler top thing, it struggles to get that amount of water to a boil, so it's not quite there, but it's going to do the job nicely. I've pulled the bag of the cold steeping grains out, and that pot is now sitting on the burner coming up. I'm going to bring it up to 68 degrees, so when I dump it into here, it's not going to affect our temperature in here, and that'll probably take, I would imagine it's going to take 20 or 30 minutes to come up the temperature. There should be about 5 litres of that in there. So I think we'll get 21, we should get around 21 litres, 20 and a half out of the Robo Brew in this first batch. So with that 5 that's in there, we should be around 25 to 26 litres in the mash tun. With the what is it? There's 7 kilos of grain in here. So 7 kilos with the 26, we're going to be around that 36 litre volume, which I'm not going to get. I don't think I'm even going to get another bloody bit into here. So that'll be pretty full. At that point, I will put the remainder of the water, which will be probably around 17, a little bit 17 for Sparge, 10, probably somewhere around 24 litres. I'll put 27 litres back into the robo brew. Once it's finished, I'll pull that mould pipe out, give it a rinse out, and I'll heat my Sparge water in there, and I can use I'll just Sparge directly from the robo brew when we get to it on this big mash. So right now, really nothing to watch. You don't really want to see me stand here for the next 20 minutes while this is slowly coming in. So I'm going to switch off, and we'll pop back a little bit later when there's something else interesting to look at. Righto, so we've transferred all that mash over from the robo brew. Got it in. That worked really well. It didn't take quite as long as I thought it would. Probably took about 10 minutes. But it wet the grain really well. It mixed up pretty good. Must say, using my first go with the new mash paddle. Finally bought myself a stainless steel mash paddle, and it's working really good. So I've got water from the robo brew. I popped in about 1.5 litres Sparge on that, and I've put about another 3.5 litres of that almost boiling water into here. I'm sitting on 62 degrees at the moment, which is a little bit lower than what I want, but I've still got to add in the wort from the steeping dark grains, which is still going to go in, which will top this off. It's currently on the hot plate warming up. So what I'm going to do at the moment, I'm just going to shut this up, let it sit while that dark wort comes up. So what I'll do, I'm going to actually bring it to a boil and dump it back in here. It's about 5 litres there. I think with the 5 litres that's there, with the 62, it's going to bring us up right around where we want to be, around that 66 degree mark. Either way, I think it's going to get us pretty much right in the zone we want to be at. So that's all good. So I'll do that shortly. And then we'll just let this sit for a little bit longer. While that's happening, I'm going to go and put some more water in here. As I said, I've got 5 litres in there already. I'm going to pop another 7 in. This will be a total of 22 litres, which we'll have to Sparge with. I'll warm that up. By the time that's warmed up, this will be ready to Sparge, and we'll come back and have a look at it then. Righto, so I've got the boil off sleepings from the dark grain. Get that in. That's going to bring us hopefully up to our next mash step. Mix in. Now, I took a refract I'm going to be reading on the original, on the runnings from the robo brew, and that was 1053. So I'm pretty happy with that. Not bad out of, with the 4 litres. Obviously not worried about what the efficiency or anything was on that, because it wasn't a complete Sparge or anything. But that's a good starting point for the rest of this. And that's nudging, just nudging 68 degrees, so I'm very happy with that. Again, we'll shut him up. Now I'm going to let this sit now for another 40 minutes. Let that do its thing, and we'll come back and we'll Sparge through. So I'm not going to be doing a mash out step with this. So basically we're just going to use that, use the higher mash sparge temp just to bring us through that temp and do what it needs to do. I just haven't got enough space, and I'm not going to really don't want to figure out with doing more transfers and stuff. I think this is going to work fine as it is. So that's it. So we'll come back when we're doing the sparge. Okay, second mash is completed, and I'm just doing a quick ball loop just to set the bed before we sparge. So that's just running off a couple of jugs of the wort and just recirculating that back on top. Using the New Beauty Super Duper Sparge arm, which has been seen before by anyone who normally watching the video. Anyone new, it's just a aluminium barbecue baking tray that I've just put all the holes through. It just sits on top, and at the moment there's a little bit too much water in the wort in the tun for it actually fit properly, so it's drained, so that's alright. So this will put through a this further one will probably be enough, and then we'll start draining. So I've got my kettle down here where you can't, I don't think you can see there on the video. He's sitting on the burner ready to go, so once this is started I'll get the burner going and start coming to temp. So that'll do it. That's looking nice and clean there. There's no bits of grain or anything in that, so I'm pretty happy that the bed's set in the bottom there. So I'll just let that go to the kettle. Now I'm going to grab a quick refrac on that just for the hell of it. So I'll just let that sit for a bit to cool down. While we keep going here. In the case we're draining there. So I'm just going to use the pump on the Robo Brew. Run that back into the sparge arm and keep the pump on. You don't want to too slow, we want it to about the same as what's coming out of the can if we can. At the moment, a little bit quick, we'll slow that back a bit. You want the sparge to happen reasonably slow. I think that's a good enough flow just there. Sort of watch it, don't get stuck on this sparge. There is a lot of oats in here. Seems to be going alright. That looks good. Flow seems to be fairly steady. So we'll leave that go. And I'll get the kettle fired up. Get it going. We'll come back and have a look once that's going when we're getting the talk about some hops. And check how our numbers are looking. Righto folks, let's tidy up the end of this this brew. We've jumped from the Sparge and transfer to the kettle to right now where I've just put these 2 fermenters into the fridge with yeast pitched and put them away ready to ferment. The afternoon got a little bit, late morning, the afternoon got a little bit cockeyed and crazy. I had doctor's appointments, had to duck out earlier on, and so I just was bouncing around. Things just didn't really happen as smooth as I wanted them to. So anyway, let's talk through what happened since the last little bit of video. We got transferred to the kettle. We ended up with 30 litres in the kettle, which was exactly what I was aiming for, so I was pretty happy with that. The figures were a little bit, obviously running with 2 different vessels and a little bit of unknown quantity with cold steeping and whatnot, and how the actual, the reiterated mash was going to go. I was pretty happy with that. I probably could have got another litre out of the ton if I really pushed it, but 30 was where I was aiming for into the kettle. No, sorry, 38, not 30. And actually was pushing 39. So after 38, ended up with 39. So I was pretty happy with that. Gravity, obviously, I knew I was going to take a hit with the gravity, like with a bigger beer, as you do. Your efficiency's pretty shocking. Pre-boil gravity was, I've lost it here. No, I can't. I actually haven't written it down in the end. What I've ended up with, I think the 1053, the original, the gravity we took from the first mash may have been a little bit off. Was done with the refrac, and it's never seemed to be particularly bloody accurate. Either way, we ended up. So we've gone through the boil. We'll go through the hops quickly. A bit of this one with Warrior, just because it's nice and apparently it's nice and clean. I've never used Warrior before. We'll go there. This batch was 35 grams of Warrior. I then went to 100 grams of Williamette at 15 minutes. They went in with a Wharflock. 40 grams of Cascade went in with 5 minutes to go, and then 30 grams of Mosaic with 2 minutes left in the boil. So there's nothing post-boil, no bullshit, no whirlpools, there's going to be no dry hopping. It's all up front, it's all traditional. Now I did add a little bit of chemicals to the water. It's a bit heavier on the magnesium, on the Epsom salt, just to push the hardness a little bit. A little bit of extra calcium carbonate to work on that as well. Touch of gypsum and a little bit of calcium chloride as well. My water's pretty soft, so it's working on getting it a bit harder, getting a bit more in there. It wasn't working any particular profile. That's just going off what works for me, and obviously that's going to be different for yourselves, so I can't really give you a profile to follow. So we've gone to the fermenter after the boil. I had all sorts of dramas. I was planning on pumping from the boil kettle with just a little bit of minor adjustments, using the mag drive pump and pumping through the twin coil that I've been using on the Robo Brew. I played around, made the adjustments I needed to so I could set that up into the boil kettle, because it sets up easy for the Robo Brew. And wouldn't you know it, I turned the pump on, the fucking pump didn't go. So I don't know what's going on. I need to pull it apart and see what's going on. So that meant I was then very hurriedly pulling hoses and things off this and off that, and reconnecting to the old fittings, and which I've taken apart, put them all back together onto the hoses, and got the immersion chiller dunked into the kettle. That probably took me about 8 minutes
to get that done. And when I've got over 200 grams of hops in the boil, and it's sitting at close to boiling temperature, and there are some rising, and the IBUs are just ticking up, I was pretty panicked to get that sorted out. But we did. Immersion chiller in, no problem, pumped it through, and just left it running. I went to the doctor's and just left it running while I was gone. I got back and it was sitting on 24 degrees, so that wasn't too bad. Whirlpooled it, that's brought it down to about 21 whirlpooled, and into the fermenter. 14 litres into 2 fermenters. I don't have a big enough fermenter to do 28 litres, and given the amount of krausen I got off my yeast starter, I certainly expect to have a nice whack on this during the ferment, so I wasn't going to try and put 28 litres into my 30 litre fermenter, so I split it into 2 and split the yeast I had on that. The yeast I'm using, Wyeast 3787, the Trappist high gravity ale yeast. I've never used this yeast before, this is completely new for me, but the reason I'm using is a few years back I got a stout from a case swap, and it had been done with the 3787, and the character on that beer was just, the yeast character was just beautiful. It didn't have the typical bitey Belgian sort of heat and that, which I assume was because there was no candy sugar and that sort of stuff in that beer. So I've wanted to use that yeast on a beer ever since, and this is really the first chance I've had to do that. It needs to be something big, so here it is. I did a 2-step starter on that. Off the top of my head, I think I've worked out we've got somewhere around the high 400 billion cells in that starter, which I'm splitting both ways onto the yeast, and that's probably running about 20% over estimates of what I need. Now again, I said don't quote me what these numbers are, the numbers themselves may be wrong, but the 20% extra was what I was looking at with the growth. That yeast was tacking along quite nicely today. The second starter's been going for 48 hours. The activity was starting to slow down a little bit by this afternoon. It was still going pretty good this morning. So I'm envisioning it's just going to fire up really fast and start getting into this beer. So I'm fermenting at 20 degrees. Again, that's a little bit higher than what I would normally ferment, but I'm happy to push this one a little bit. Obviously, at starting gravity of 1084. It's going to need a little bit of push, so I used about a teaspoon of nutrient in each fermenter as well, just to help things along, and a reasonable amount of aeration whilst transferring. So hopefully everything's right, and it'll go along nicely. I'm going to let it tick till, I'm expecting final gravity to be somewhere around 1019. 1019 is calculated. I would expect it's probably going to, I'm hoping it's going to drop down to about 1017 to get me my 9%, which I'm aiming for, given that I've got labels, or the Sun's getting labels made for the bottles for these beer, which are going to say 9%. Given we had to get the labels made, we really had no choice but to sort of take a guess. I was working to specific numbers, and I felt we've been pretty range. The target was 1086, got 1084. So if we can pick up the extra 2 points at the bottom end, which I'm hoping we will do from that 62 degree mash earlier with the Lager Malt, that there'll be enough extra fermentables there from that we can drag it down to sort of 1017, 1018. So what I'm looking at, I've got to put in some vanilla extract. I've got some good quality extract to put in there, and I'm going to dump that into the primary. Probably, I'm looking to be probably somewhere around 1025 on the gravity, just before it's finished fermenting. I want to do it while there's still some action going on, so I've got a little bit of protection from when I open the fermenter to put it in. I'm not going to muck around doing secondary and whatnot, so it'll just be in the end of the ferment. It rubs off a little bit of flavour. I'm not really that fast. It's just for a little bit of a hint. So that's where she is. That's the hydro sample that I've taken. And it's not as black as I sort of envisioned it was going to be, which is a little surprising, but that will obviously that's going to darken up as it ferments, I'd imagine. So we'll see how it goes. But I mean, I didn't want to black us really, so pretty happy with that. Haven't actually even tasted that, so and I didn't put a real lot of roast in. A lot of chocolate, whack of brown and some dark crystal. So I'm really going to push the chocolate coffee notes, the raisin, but I don't really want to push the roasted, those really roasty notes. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people who are getting this beer aren't going to be, they're not connoisseurs, they're not beer drinkers. I mean, they might drink lagers and stuff, but this is going to be a lot well out of people's normal sort of stuff. So I didn't want to make it completely crazy, but so. Oh, good. Oh, I'm really happy with that. Oh there's nice chocolates in there already, so I'm pretty confident. And there's not much, the roast isn't there, so that's very smooth. So if anything, really, it's going to be almost like an Imperial Porter as opposed to an Imperial Stout. It won't quite have that bite of a stout. So that's where we are. So I will do a taste on this down the track a little bit. Now I'm not going to let it go 12 months. We're going to give stuff to the wedding, and obviously recommend that people let it sit for 12 months before they drink it. It's a big beer. It's going to take some time to settle, but again, without that big bitey, roasty flavours, I think it will actually be drinkable in a reasonable amount of time. So I might try and get a taste test on this one about 2 months down the track. See how we go. Most of these bottles are going to go to the wedding, but I am hoping that I will be able to keep half a dozen for myself. Somewhere around there. I know the bride's father is keen for a couple of bottles to keep himself as well, so I think we should be able to manage that without too much trouble and see how we go. So just recapping the day, let me tell you, I won't be doing this again in a hurry. Next time I want to do a big beer, I'll just simply be doing a smaller batch. Would have been much. I could have pumped out a 12 or 14 litre batch quite simply in one vessel without all the muck around. I probably could have pumped it out on the Robo Brew without too much issue. So there's a lesson there, but I knew it was going to be drama. I knew the equipment I've got. I have not set up to brew massive big beers. I don't do them. I don't do massive amounts of beer. So it was always going to be a bit of an interesting thing. But we got through. And that old adage, you can't make beer without spilling some wort. Well, let me tell you, I spilled some fucking wort. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a good 4 patches on the floor. There's a little bit of efficiency there on the floor. Actually, probably got bloody half a litre or so on the floor. But that doesn't worry me. Things happen. We got where we had to get to. So that's it. Reiterated RIS, Robo Brew, 3V, combo, mash, brew day done. I'll stick the recipe in the bottom for those that are interested. Got any comments, any questions, stick them down the bottom. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit it as well so you get all the updates. This is the New England IPA I brewed just recently. It's partly the subject of the 5 on Friday, which I did a little bit earlier. That's drinking really nice if you're interested in that as well. But that's it for today. I'm going to go and do a little bit of cleaning up left and get tidy before the end of the day, then settle down and have a few more beers, because I won't take too many of these and it'll soon stop me from cleaning up anymore. So that's it, Little John for today. So until I'm looking at you again, we're brewing beer, talking beer, drinking beer, good brewing.